First is the new god. I didn't actually get to see all of his stuff, so I'm going to read this for the first time. So he's a warrior. Each time, I don't know how to pronounce that, Erlang Shen, I guess, hits an enemy with a basic attack. His dog hits it as well for 15% of his basic attack power, which trigger items for basic attacks at 15% of their normal damage and can critical hit. So I guess that means items like kin size, 15% of their passive trigger? Right? I guess? I don't know. So that's an interesting passive. That makes him have a lot more late game damage potential than most warriors. His one spot weakness, Erlang Shen opens his third eye and analyzes the enemy strengths and weaknesses. When activated, Erlang Shen gains additional physical power on each strike and ignores basic attack movement speed penalties for the duration for 5 seconds. While on cooldown, successful basic attacks reduce the cooldown of this ability. Huh, okay. So he looks already very basic attack oriented. Erlang Shen launches a spear that damages enemies on impact. Enemies in the dead center of the effect when it lands are crippled and rooted in place. Okay, so he has basic attacks. He can stick on them. I'm gonna like go through this briefly because I didn't get to see the video, so I don't have much to comment about this. 72 transformations. Erlang Shen transforms into a mink or turtle and charges forward. Mink damages all enemies, plus 85% of physical power. That's a lot of scaling for a warrior. That most warriors have like 50%, 40%, something around there. That's a ton of scaling for a warrior. Stopping on the first god hit and increasing attack speed. Okay, so he has a steroid as well. And then the turtle knocks up all enemies in path and gains a health shield. Holy crap. Okay, that ability seems sick. And then his ultimate, 9 turns blessing. Erlang Shen taunts nearby enemy gods, gaining damage mitigation. 15% isn't too big, but that's really good. For the next 4 seconds afterwards, if Erlang Shen is still alive, he is healed for a flat amount. 510? What? 150 to 510? Plus 20% of his maximum health. Okay, that's an insane defensive ultimate right there, I'm pretty sure. Let me scroll down chat. Wait, isn't this Wukong's 3 name or something? But, okay, so he's basically... Okay, this god could be really good. It depends on how his clear and his laning phase is, because most warriors are just made for soloing, but he'll be a lot more potent late game because he's being built around basic attacks, which is stronger than an early game, or not than an early game, than an ability-based god, because you have to build tanky on a warrior to do your job. So something like Chalk has pretty negligible damage in the late game, whereas something like Bologna or an Osiris, if you just put a kin size on them, they still have decent late game damage output, and this guy will be even stronger than that because of the passive. He also... It seems like... I don't know how Frostbound interacts with his passive, but he might not even need Frostbound to stick on people because of... what is this? It's a root or something, crippled and rooted. So he can already stick on people for a pretty decent amount. And then he can obviously chase them with us, so he'll be an interesting god. I'm gonna go through skins. Okay, the Rocca Bologna is pretty cool. Capri skin is sick. I think this is a tier 2. These are both tier 2s. They're pretty cool. I'm just gonna like go through the skins. Heavy Metal Thor card looks pretty cool. Okay, this is the best avatar in the game by far, and this is sick. We have a Mr. Krabs Capri. Achievements, who cares? Summer of SMITE 2016. Just an event, you get all the skin stuff, who cares? Keep going. Miscellaneous, the item store layout for starter items now matches our previous updates to relics and consumables. That's good, just makes the store cleaner. Updated UI elements to make it more clear when you are in auto skill and auto buy modes. So they said that was because of DJ. So DJ buffed all the new players, that's pretty sick. Who cares about warriors in solo when you got Vanguard Cabrakan? Yeah, you're right. But we'll see how that plays out. Okay, relics. New relic Thorns. This is basically Shield of the Underworld from last season. The difference is it's double the cooldown from a minute last season now to 120 seconds, and hunters are able to lifesteal. So in season 2, hunters hated Shield of the Underworld because a warrior would walk at them, They would unload their entire kit on them, and the only option the hunter had was to run away, because warriors would build Nemean and Shield of the Underworld, and they would pop it, and if a hunter autoed into it, they would get 60% of their damage reflected into them and not lifesteal any of it, and they would just die. So now you're still going to have a ton of damage reflect onto a hunter. It still will be really strong, but if you have an item like Soul Eater or maybe an Aussie passive, you might be able to lifesteal through it. It'll still be insanely strong for warriors, I think, in certain situations. I don't know if it'll be auto pickup like it was. I think most warriors last year, if you watched like old VODs of competitive games from regionals and worlds, I think Baskin and Salt bought that item almost like every game. At least at Worlds, I think they did. And they would just run at the enemy backline and pop it and do a ton of damage. I don't know if it'll be like that again, but if a composition is all around having a hunter hyper carry, then you'll definitely see that item a lot. New Relic Phantom, this is just using this item allows you to pass through players and player-made objects for 5 seconds. It also grants 100% reduction to basic attack. Okay, so movement penalty, I guess I should finish that. Okay, so it's good that Ghost Walking, or whatever they want to call it, is on a relic. It was really weird to have it on Spectral Armor, because if you picked a mage like Ra, for example, and the enemy team picked Odin, your only way to get out of the cage used to be Combat Blink. Now Combat Blink is out of the game. So then they added Ghost Walking, but it was only on Spectral Armor. So if you were Ra and you wanted to get out of an Odin cage, you had to build a huge physical protection defense item and also burn a relic to get out of it, and it felt super clunky, and it just didn't ever really, it didn't do its job well enough, I think. So this relic will help with that. It also could have some cool usage against Ymir and Kabrakan and Thor, but I think you'll probably only mainly see it against Odin for the first part of it. The second part of it is interesting, reducing the basic attack movement penalty. So that's basically a Hasten Fatalis effect. But the difference is with Hasten Fatalis and items like that, something I don't think a lot of people touched on, is that you have to be constantly hitting the autos to refresh that. And with this, you'll just be able to, like, this is how old Sprint 3 was, where you'll just be able to gas pedal and you don't have to keep hitting your autos. You can just swing like a wild man, and if it hits, it'll hit, and you'll just keep running really fast. That, in combination with Sprint, if your support gets Sprint or a jungler gets Sprint or whatever else, could be really good for hunters, but I'm not sure. I think that change would just have to see a lot of testing, but that seems like a super niche relic. I think items like Beads and Aegis and Heavenly are probably just stronger on their own, so I doubt you'll see it used too much for the second part, but you could if people find a comp to exploit it in. Blink, time out of combat before Blink can be used, reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. I touched on it earlier. Combat Blink is out of the game. I don't know if this is supposed to make Blink more defensive. Obviously, it can be used both defensively and aggressively. But I think that's a good change. Blink does feel a little clunky and a little underpowered right now. Even gods where support gods is what I'm talking about mainly, because that's what I have experience with. Gods like Ymir and Geb and Sylvanas, gods that you would normally really want Blink on, sometimes in Season 3 you just wouldn't even get Blink because it just didn't feel strong enough. I think that was more related to the overall cooldown rather than the out-of-combat portion, but this helps it, so I think it's a good change. I'm going to come back to Curse, because I think there's a lot to talk about with this. So I'll skip Curse and I'll come back to that. Frenzy also applies a 20% attack speed increase for the duration. This gives Frenzy a lot more synergy with other actives, such as the, what is it called? Phantom? Is that what they called it? Yeah, Phantom. So, if you have this active, you can gas pedal at people. If somebody uses Frenzy on you, you now have more attack speed, so not only can you stick on them, but you're swinging faster. That could maybe be interesting. Frenzy has always been a pretty overlooked active. I'm not sure if this makes it more viable to pick up and to consider. It's definitely worth considering more, but that'll be interesting to play with. Oh, everybody's favorite active, Scout. Let's frickin' go. Okay, Scout is meant to be a viable starting option for supports, but was often outclassed by other relics. With Scout's new ability, supports can use it as a gold source for warding the right spots. This should both improve the viability of the relic as well as improve games by Definitively rewarding skilled word placement. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this item is still trash. And I don't want to be negative Nancy, but best case scenario, every 2 minutes you're going to get an additional 25 gold for revealing a word. And if there was an active that was every 2 minutes, add 25 gold, you would never get it. I understand it's like different, but Scout wasn't picked up to begin with because the wording just didn't matter. Like, you could just buy a word and there are way better actives. I'm pretty sure it's still the exact same thing. Having 25 extra gold every 2 minutes isn't really going to change much. It's better for newer players, obviously, but I don't think it'll change anything at like a higher level of play. Sprint duration reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Cooldown increased from 140 seconds to 150. I think both of those are very good changes. Weakening Curse was previously... Actually, no, it still is 150 seconds, and it felt really bad to build Weakening just as a normal active without having to counter build healers, because Sprint just completely countered it, and it did more. Like, it would also increase everybody's movement speed after the fact, so basically all of Curse's effect except for the healing portion was gone, and healers weren't even in the meta, so it just didn't matter. Like, Sprint was just better all around. Sprint is still an incredibly diverse, versatile active, not diverse. It's still crazy versatile. You can still use it offensively or defensively, but now you get punished a little harder by Curse potentially if you aren't using it if you're not making sure that you use it for the enemy Curse and lining up those cooldowns, it could punish you a lot harder. Okay, let's see. Sunder. We want Sunder to not only be a damaging ability, but reward players who hit the correct target. Sunder will now provide an attack speed reduction to targets hit, as well as provide a more potent protection shred. This allows Sunder to serve as a strong damage tool, as well as a serious debuff tool. Basically, this means Sunder is the best active in the game, and if you don't build it every game, you're an idiot. I'm only half kidding. Sunder is a sick active. Everybody should join the Blinken Sunder clan. It's the best clan in SMITE. And, yeah, I don't know. This just makes it... People never really bought Sunder for the prot shred reduce. They just bought it for extra damage. Like, you never saw a comp that had 3 tanks and people would go, oh, we get to buy Sunder now because they have a lot of tanky targets. Like, that never came into play. So I think adding more utility with the 30% attack speed reduction is a good move. If you don't need actives like Curse or maybe a Heavenly, or a Sprint, I guess, rather, to counterplay the other team, getting something like a Sunder could be really nice, and it could just give you an extra utility in team fights, so who knows how that'll play. Teleport has long been a staple of the Soul Lane, creating interesting combat situations when used with wards and towers. With this change, we aim to increase the amount of counterplay so that teleporting feels more tactical and calculated, rather than an emergency entrance or exit. So, increasing the channel time from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. That is a pretty big change for, I think, more the ward application than the tower application. So you'll still get teleport in Soul Lane to get to lane and get all of your farm and all that stuff and just get ahead and be able to rotate to team fights. It's still the same active. It'll probably be just as viable. The difference now is in competitive games, you'll see a lot of teams just kind of place random wards all over the map, and the reason for that is to give the Soul Laner spots to teleport to in teamfights. And because those wards are in obscure spots, sometimes it's hard when a teamfight is about to start to like be aware that somebody is teleporting to a ward around you and then turn around and get 3 auto attacks off on it. If you were the only person in range of that ward, you normally, unless it was like right in front of you and you had perfect reaction time, sometimes you wouldn't even be able to auto attack down the ward and kill it before the person teleports. So another extra second basically increases your, like, it gives you a 1 second buffer on your reaction time and everything. So there's a lot more counterplay to Soul Laners teleporting during teamfight, which I think is really good. I think that's the most frustrating thing about the active. I like that change a lot, and hopefully it plays out well. Okay, this is a huge change, Wrath. Wrath is the primary jungler control relic, but hasn't been picked up often by the Assassin or Guardians of SMITE.